Hello and welcome everyone to today's video. Today's topic will be dedicated to how to practice piano or your instrument away from being at your instrument. So this started from a video that I did last time, which was about how to practice for very busy people who only have an hour of time. And the idea here is that there are some certain techniques you can do. For example, when you're commuting to work, if you're at school, or let's say you have an hour in a cafe or something, or just even 15 minutes, how can you use that time to essentially practice or make the best out of it, that it's almost like practicing your instrument? If you're not a pianist, then first of all, welcome to this channel. I normally do piano related content, but I think this video is going to work for pretty much any musician, because we work with similar methods, and of course if we don't have our instrument, then we are all with the same kind of tools. Of course there are going to be some piano specific parts that I add and I talk about, since I'm a pianist and the viewers are also mainly pianists, but this can also relate to other instruments. For example, if you're a violinist, you might find some of this advice useful, or if you're a singer or any other instrument. So now the question is why? Why should we even practice away from our instrument? For example, for the piano. There are a couple of reasons for that. First is of course just time efficiency reasons. Let's say you don't have so much time to practice at your instrument and you have a long way to go every day, or you do not have an instrument at home and you need to go to another place to practice. Having another method that you can practice without actually having the instrument, I think is actually really, necessary, right? And the other aspect is that there are a lot of things, there are certain techniques, certain methods that have actually been researched and been proven to work, that it will improve your mind muscle connection or mind instrument connection. But I just want to say that these methods will of course not replace the real practice, but I think it's a great addition. Especially we will take a look at 4 different methods, and I think in combination they really kind of add to the practice. They don't replace practice of course, but it's a nice addition to your daily routine. Some of them are so essential, I think anyone should be doing them, even if you have like 8 hours to practice every day. Some of them are, I think, necessary to do because they improve certain aspects that you might not be thinking about, but we will get to that in a moment. If you want to read more, for example, on the research, as always, there will be some links in the description. So in essence, this video is both for those who don't have enough time and for those who would like to improve away from the instrument. First, we will talk about visualizing things, visualization. Okay, so visualization is a complex thing. It's actually quite a difficult thing to do. Basically, we want to imagine things and we want to imagine them as realistically as possible. But the key thing about this technique is that we do not act out the things. So we will have a later section called just that we do rhythm, gesture, this kind of practice. For example, on a table or something like this. But for visualizing, you do not actually act out on the things. This is an important aspect because we want to only visualize things. So we want to think about what the sensation is. There are a lot of things we can visualize, so we will break it down now. The first thing you can visualize is everything related to motoric and to positions. So you can visualize, for example, what does it look like, my hand on the keys, right? On the keys, you visualize pressing those keys and how your hand position looks like. What does your wrist look like? What does your, the wrist angle look like this, or any rotation? Arm, where is the arm? What's the arm movement like? You can think about all of these aspects together with your passage without actually acting them out. And the reason for doing this is that in your head you can create kind of an ideal, right? And some of it is maybe not perfectly possible, but it's actually a very good tool to have an ideal in your head. So first you want to visualize position of your hand, position of your fingers on the keys. You think about what does that look like? What does my hand on the piano look like? And then later you can come back to the piano after this kind of practice and try it in the real scenario. And this kind of feedback loop, you know, you will get more and more closer to the real thing of your imagination. If I think about it, like I can kind of visualize my hand on the keys and kind of playing that piano in my mind. The resistance, I can feel it too, you know, but it might not be a perfect match to the real resistance. Something like this is much harder to really accurately control. But visualizing works. People visualize all the time. For example, people who do skiing, right? People who do or kind of race, then they visualize the race probably about 100 or 200 times before they go out and do the real race, because you need to win the race at home 100 times before you go and then you have a chance to win it in person. You can also use visualizing for going through the piece in your mind, and then maybe, you know, I don't know how it continues there. That's also a kind of tool for visualization, is that maybe I could not find the path from A to Z, you know, from start to finish without any hiccups. Maybe there are some sections that I don't know as good as I thought. For me, the best thing about all of this is you can spend like 20-30 minutes visualizing like a whole piece, then you do get back home or you go to your practice room and you can finally try it and you can see what was the difference between my imagination and the reality. Then you work so that the reality becomes the same thing as the imagination. Okay, now we will talk about score study. This one is super important and underrated, I think. Score study means you go, for example, to a cafe or you are in any situation, right? You should even do this if you do have a piano next to you. Although, I mean, of course you should practice, but every once in a while you should just do score study. Score study means you get your score and you just look, and first you can of course visualize things, yeah, imagine things, visualize. Maybe the word has a broader meaning in this video than it maybe truly has, because visualizing is just like imagining the visual forms of it. But I'm also talking about like things that have to do with physical side or hearing things. Yes. So first you look at the score and then you try to visualize, imagine what does that sound like in a perfect kind of environment, one that where you can play exactly as you wish. You know, you can produce the tones all the time exactly as you wish. This can be a piece you know already, can be a new piece too. And you look at the score and you go through it and you add the music kind of in your mind. Look carefully at the information. This is the point of score study, is that you absorb and concentrate only on this kind of score, and then of course you have your creative input too, right? But you take this information and you look at it without actually playing it. This is super important. When we practice and we play something, there are so many things we naturally do and we may not even be aware of them. So that if you do a score study, you can look at it from a pretty neutral perspective, and you can definitely, I think, find some new things in that score that you may have overlooked every time. Because when you practice, you just go through maybe, or you take certain things for granted. But if you look at it really from just the score perspective, you might find, oh, I didn't know there's a legato bow there, or oh, I didn't know this pedal was changed more often, right? Things like this. So only with the score, you sit at a cafe, for example, yeah, and you know, drink something nice, and then you look at the score and you visualize what does that sound like. And this kind of process, by the way, is one that everyone should do, because this is creating music from the score in a kind of ideal where things work perfectly. There is no out of tune up here, right? There is no fourth finger is weak up here. This is what I mean. This is an ideal zone, and you try to use this kind of room, yeah, this imaginary room or instrument or situation to get to your interpretation, right? So input, and here is the thinking process, creative process, and then output, yeah, perfect output. Mainly we will use this for improving the connection we have to a piece. Tip I can give you for this is, if you are in a crowded area, or you are in or you have a small backpack or a full backpack, and you don't want to take, you know, your whole book of sheet music with you, then what I can recommend to you is you take pictures page by page with your phone, or alternatively you download a PDF. The only thing about that is, of course, first you need to check that the PDF is available in your country. Second thing is that the edition that you do download should be ideally the same that you practice with, which should ideally be a reputable edition. If you just go IMSLP and you download any edition, then if you do score practice, you might find, oh, I didn't know there's a piano there, where usually there's a mezzo piano or something like this, or you find new things, strange things, which turn out was just because the edition was outdated. Now I want to get to another topic, which is recordings, and should we do the score practice while listening to a recording? And my answer to that is, you can do that. Ideally, it is your own recording, because you can record yourself, then go to a neutral environment, then listen to it, listen to your recording, look at the score, and find the things you don't like, yeah? Find differences. Of course, this requires you to do critical thinking and to be kind of neutral towards your own recording, and to really directly hear this. You might even find some wrong notes, might even find you don't change the tempo where you should have, and things like this. So this kind of playback practice is good. Then the other part of this question is, or has to do with other people's recordings. This is a difficult topic. I would say once in a while, yes. I listen to other recordings all the time. Kissin, Zimmerman, Sokolov, Argorich, all the time, yes. Because I just want to hear them play. But also, from my repertoire, I don't listen to many recordings. Actually, only to maybe sometimes check how does that one person, one pianist, manage this section. This is the only thing I'm interested in hearing. Don't copy the recordings, don't listen and then try to match and then you play, because you're taking out the essential creative thinking that should happen. This thinking process is the number one reason we do music, right? Score to music, kind of conversion through a creative process. If you copy someone, you take that out of it. Okay, now we'll get to the next thing you can do if you're practicing but you're not at your instrument or not at home. So this is now about singing or humming. Let's say you're in a, if you're in a crowded area, I think you can get away with humming, no problem. But you can also like sing in the shower or something like this if you like. And so all practically stems in music history stems from the voice, right? Voice, that's how everything started. And you will find by singing your melodies, singing your pieces, or humming them, you will find natural kind of breathing points. You will find natural phrase, first of all, right? So it's impossible to play or sing like a phrase like this so flat. You will find a natural kind of curve to the dynamics in the phrase, and after this you will also find the natural breathing points, which is so important. Breathing, very important, also guides the way for the phrase. I do believe you can kind of sing or hum kind of anything, even if it's a contemporary composition. I mean, who cares? You can just hum or sing or somehow think about the rhythm, rhythmic elements probably exist anywhere. Mostly if you play like up to 20th century repertoire, it will have melodies. But if it doesn't, maybe singing kind of also will activate your rhythmic sense. Singing or humming is so nice for another reason too. This is similar to the visualizing thing I talked about before. If you can sing the piece start to finish, that means you have all the necessary information of where the melody goes and how how does the piece structure work. If you have this memorized, you know the path from the start to the finish. If you stop somewhere and you have no idea how it continues, that's a clue that right there is an information that you're not 100% on yet. And the last method to do practice away from the piano is rhythm and gesture practice. Let's start with the rhythm practice. I think this is maybe the most convenient to do. For example, you have a polyrhythm that you're not so keen on and it doesn't work 100% yet. Well, if you're near a table, right, or even on your palm or your lap or something, you can use your palms to kind of tap the rhythm. And you can also either do that, for example, with the precise fingers, or you can just work on your polyrhythm. The other rhythmic aspect you can work on is just something like a pulse, that you try to really keep track on it. This can be done in combinations with listening to metronomes, like just beats, and then something like this, so you work on your rhythmic sense. For example, if you're running or walking briskly, you might find that your rhythmic sense is a bit different than if you're fully relaxed. Yes, so that's the same reason why sometimes when you're really nervous and your heart goes fast, you might play very fast on stage. Of course, it also has to do with adrenaline and such things, yeah. But for example, you can recreate the heart pumping quickly by running or going for a brisk walk and then still maintaining that same tempo, right? This is also an idea. Practice by moving your fingers on a flat surface or just, somewhere like even in the air. So for this, we are now talking about acting out and moving the fingers. On the visualizing things side, we do not do that, but now we do act on the things. I'll tell you, my favorite thing to do with such practice is not to go a very hard passage and technical passage. Rather, I like to think maybe one of the slower passages in my current repertoire and just think about this movement like this, and really act it out on a table or a flat surface or something, and then you try to feel what that feels like and act it out. If you do motoric practice, I'm afraid that the resistance which is missing will hinder things a little bit. I mean, the progress might not be, or the benefits from it might not be that large, which is why also this method is the fourth on my list for today, because I think out of all the things I told you, this might be the least kind of beneficial, but it's very beneficial for me for kind of like slow passages where you have to like be more in the keys, more active like this. Whereas if it's something like you have to just do in a motoric sense, I think this does not benefit so much from table practice. But if you do something like this, the one thing it can benefit from is just activating the fingers, doing the same movement, same neural pathways that you would when you play a passage. So it can benefit from that. The only problem is position is not precise and there is no resistance. So this is why I suggest you just move the fingers for like slower passages, try to get a good feeling for them, and of course you can do some basic warm-up exercises. But out of all the methods today, I think this one is the least interesting, and the ones I would, as a small conclusion, the ones I would recommend you the most is score practice and visualizing both you playing and, if you have a concert or something like that, the situation of the concert. So I hope you enjoyed this video. There will be more content like this coming up, so make sure you subscribe. If you have any questions, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.